Welcome back. Hey, you're still listening to this show. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is episode 97. I'm Tim Laskus, and you're listening to The Tim Laskus Show. Today's featured guest is Daniel Burrus. Now, Daniel's the author of the number one new release, The Anticipatory Organization: Turn Disruption and Change into Opportunity and Advantage. Now, he's the founder of Burrus Research. He does all kinds of stuff like consulting and research and speaking engagements. And some of his clients are like the biggest ones out there. Well-known brands such as Dell, Deloitte, Discover, Disney, Dow, eBay, Exxon, Fidelity, GE, General Mills, Google, Gulf Power, the Hilton, Honda, Honeywell, Kaiser Permanente, Kellogg's. You get the message. This guy knows what he's doing if these big companies are hiring him. So this is a great episode. I know you're going to enjoy.
The Tim Laskus Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests, entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskus.
Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Hey, so tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, Daniel. What are you doing when you're not working so hard?
Well, when I'm not working, I've actually got a lot of interests. I live in San Diego and have a catamaran. I've got a couple of Harley Davidsons, so I like to get on the water, like to get on the road. I love photography, love hiking. So I've got a lot of things that I like to do.
Well, I love sailing and riding motorcycles as well, so it sounds like we have a lot in common, and I'm sure living in sunny San Diego, you have plenty of great weather throughout the year to do all those fun activities.
Absolutely.
Now, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself professionally, and what are you currently working on?
Well, I have, over the years, I've started 6 companies. I think you might have mentioned that, and I've got 5 were profitable in the first year. 4 were national leaders in the first year. One of them was in aviation. I had an airplane design idea, built it, test flew it, and had 37 national locations in the first year. So I know how to take the principles that I write about in my books and apply them as an entrepreneur.
Well, Daniel, what is one of the biggest issues people have in being able to grow a business? You know, a lot of times people have ideas about doing something, but they want to do everything themselves. And I take it that's not what you did.
Well, I think all entrepreneurs start out just by themselves, as I did. We all just have an idea, a dream, and we get going. And I think too often we wait too long to get help, and because we think only we can do it best. And the reality is probably only you can do it best, but you are never going to be able to grow if you just stay by yourself. So at some point, you have to allow others to do it. And frankly, one of the things I talk about in my new book, The Anticipatory Organization, is the power of focus and not really just doing what you have a talent for, but really doing what you have a gift for. So the key is identifying what your gift is and trying to stay in that zone so that you are functioning at the highest levels.
Yeah. So when did this book kind of ideas start for you, and how did it come about, and for you putting it together, and just kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, well, this is book number 7 for me, and even though I've started 6 companies, my main company I've had for 34 years now, Burrus Research, and so I've been doing forecasting and helping people to rapidly grow their businesses and accelerate innovation for decades. So what I did was I created a leadership and online learning system a couple of years ago to teach people, because really I think the 2 most important times in a person's life is the day you're born and the day you find out why you were born. I was put on the planet to teach rather than just tell. So I really love empowering people. So I created this learning system called the Anticipatory Organization. And by the way, it is for individuals and entrepreneurs. The reason I called it organization is if you're the only anticipatory person in an organization, and everyone's going to be very happy. So it's kind of getting more than just you to see how the power of anticipation can unfold. So the learning system achieved a Product of the Year award almost within the first couple of months, and it's being used by all sorts of companies all over the country and in other countries. So the book was really based on the success of the learning system. I thought, this should be a book. So that's how it came about.
Wow. So you said this is book number 7, and I like what you said. You were kind of born not to tell, but to teach. And so, did you always know that you kind of had that teacher within you?
No, as a matter of fact, high school or grade school, I didn't even like the teachers that much. And if someone would have told me then, or even my first year in college, if somebody would have said, you're going to end up being a teacher, I would have kind of laughed at them, even though I kind of was a natural teacher. But once I started opening my eyes to that and just allowed that thought to come in, it all of a sudden started making sense.
Wow. Now, what are a couple of maybe mistakes that you see new entrepreneurs make when they're just starting out and and not having kind of the ability to really grow or be successful? Do you see any kind of common missteps or mistakes?
Well, absolutely. And I think a couple of things that helped me very quickly, and again, I do talk about this in the new book, and that is, number one, I learned how to fail fast because I couldn't afford to fail slow. And most companies and organizations and individuals fail slowly, and that's very expensive and very painful. And to do that, we tend to have success metrics. In other words, we know what success looks like, but we don't know what failure looks like. So when we're failing, we don't really realize we are until you've been doing it for a long time. So in the book, what I do is I talk about how to actually know when you're failing so you can fail quickly. Secondly, I didn't believe in competing because it's difficult. Competition is tough. So what I like to do is look at what others are doing and not do that, but to go to the next level. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's usually high risk. But the key is you can do exponential leaps ahead with low risk and the confidence that certainty provides when you are using, again, what I call the hard trends that are shaping the future. And that, of course, is something I came up with long ago, that concept, and have been refining it. And, of course, I'm teaching it in the new book. And by the way, for entrepreneurs out there, my last book, Flash Foresight, which was a bestseller, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, #1 on Amazon. I think you'd like that one as well. They're both very helpful for entrepreneurs because really I'm just sharing exactly what I did with stories of how anyone can do it.
Now, Daniel, let's back up to the first point you had about learning to fail fast. I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there may be kind of baffled at, well, how do I know I'm failing? Especially when it comes to, online, social media, and marketing. A lot of times you don't know what you're doing is either working or not. And people just say, well, it takes time. It takes time. It may take a year. It may take 2 years. So you could wait around for 2 years and look back and go, damn, I still don't have a following. I still don't have any traction. So, how are people supposed to really kind of gauge whether they're failing or whether they're actually making incremental steps forward?
Great question. Thank you. Stop listening to other people so much. Because I think one of the reasons I've had very great success as an entrepreneur is that I knew that other people, when they were giving me advice, were giving me advice based on their own limitations and their own way they think they need it to be done. But there are many ways to do it. For example, everyone would say you need funding, you need money, you need to get on Shark Tank or whatever. And I didn't do any of those things. I skipped all that, which, by the way, is another thing that I teach in the new book. And that is how to take your biggest problems and skip them so that you can succeed faster. We can come back on that if you'd like, but let's stick with failing fast. So instead of saying, well, you got to wait a year or two to see if it works, I don't think it takes that long to see if something is working. I think it either starts working very quickly or you probably are on the wrong track. So I think you make adjustments much faster. For example, last Friday, I think I reached on LinkedIn having 1 million followers. And I think I'm in the top 30 in the world now. Well, that started with what? Started with 1 follower. And I think because I take the time to really learn from everything that I do and make adjustments, and if I'm not growing that following, or for example, when I'm on, let's say, Twitter, which I have over 100,000 followers on. If it is not getting widely read, widely shared, I have to analyze why not. because I thought all the tweets, I thought all the Facebook posts, I thought all the blogs were good. But if they don't think it's good, something's wrong. I need to adjust. Most of us make the mistake of just keep doing it. So let's just take a blog, because I have several million monthly blog readers. And again, not many can say that. And I think the way I started getting such a big following was I would post a blog, and then I didn't wait weeks and weeks. I waited just a day or two to see how quickly people are grabbing it. In other words, do I have 5,000 people that read it? Do I have 1,000 people? Do I have 200,000 people that have read it? By the way, I've had I thought all of them were equally good. Obviously, the readers didn't. So I had to start asking what was different. Is it the title? Is it the first paragraph? And I started experimenting. And then I started reading what people were saying underneath. And if a lot of people aren't commenting about your blog, you probably didn't have a good one. So when I have, thousands and thousands of comments versus hundreds versus 10, I know, you know what? It's the content. I've got to adjust. I've got to change. So I think I'm looking at everything I do and not waiting to see how good it'll do over time, but making adjustments along the way, and a lot of them.
So you're keeping your finger on the pulse, so to speak, and I like that. You're moving very quickly. You're gauging whether you're getting, you're measuring whether you're getting engagement, and if you're not, then you're going to tweak it and do something until you get what you're looking for. Now, your other point about, you don't believe in competing and you want to kind of skip ahead and do a little bit more. Can you give an example of something maybe you've done with, your company, looking back when you were kind of measuring your competition, and what was something that you did that was, better or more advanced or something that just made you stand out?
Yeah, well, again, I've done quite a wide range of things with 6 companies, but I'll take something I just mentioned earlier. When I was developing and going to create an online learning, it ended up being called the Anticipatory Organization. This is several years ago. First thing I did was I looked at what best-in-class learning systems were by the biggest companies that were doing it, as well as by the new startups to see what they were doing. So I really did an analysis of what was out there so that I knew what not to do. Why? Well, they're already doing it. Why would I want to compete with them? So I use that as a way to come up with something that's better. And to come up with something better that has lower risk, I had to ask myself, if I make decisions based on the rear view mirror versus the windshield, meaning my past experience versus where technology is taking us, I would end up with higher risk. So that's where I started separating, again, a key part of the new book, separating hard trends. These are based on future facts. They will happen. You can't stop them, but you can see them ahead of time when you learn how, versus these soft trends. And these are the things that are ifs and maybes. They're based on assumptions, not future facts. So once I used and made a list of the certainties, the things that I knew were going to happen, and by the way, here's a principle I'll teach everybody right now that's, again, in the book, and that is, if it can be done, it will be done. If you don't do it, someone else will. So what I want to know is what will be done going forward, for sure. And using methodology, I could see that. So then I knew if I didn't do it, someone else will, which meant the risk of not doing it was greater than doing it. So I started using very short videos in my learning system, 2 to 3 minutes for a single concept, rapid application tools. I made it some team learning elements to it. And again, it became an award winner within months. But I've done something similar to all the other businesses. For example, I created the first real estate apps. And I did that. I started working on that back in the late 2009, launched it in January 2010. And within the first week, we were the 17th most downloaded app. And it took just a matter of months to have millions of users. And it took 6 months to generate 1.1 million a month in recurring revenue. And I had no employees, and I didn't invest any money in it at all. It was merely an experiment to see if my concepts worked. And I use the concepts that I teach in the book to do that by taking problems and skipping them, using hard trends, failing fast, and other principles that are in the book to show that, hey, you can do that. By the way, when doing that. I'd given 50 speeches around the world. I was writing a book at the time. I was consulting. So it's not like I wasn't already busy, because we think we don't have the time to do it. Nonsense. That's your limitation. You think you don't have the time, but actually you can do things that take much less time. That's why I really am passionate about this book. I call it anticipatory, because either you're reacting or you're anticipating. And everyone thinks agile innovation is the answer, but agility is reacting fast. And as the pace of technological change accelerates exponentially, which it is doing, it's getting faster, fast reacting works less every year. Plus, there's still risk in reacting, and you're still just keeping up with others. Hey, what's the advantage of keeping up? I want to jump ahead with low risk. That's why hard trends play such a powerful role.
Now, you have so much experience in building businesses and experimenting and knowing how to look into the future. But if we kind of back up into mindset, and some entrepreneurs out there listening, may have limitations on their own abilities, based on what they've done or haven't done. If they're maybe in their early 20s, they think, well, I don't have a lot of experience. I don't know that I can do this. Or maybe someone in their late 40s or early 50s who says, maybe I'm just too old to be able to, run a business. What would you say to those people?
Well, if you think you're too old, you probably are. Stop thinking that way. If you think I'm only 20 and I can't do anything, think again. I mean, I was the first undergraduate in the United States to direct a federal research grant in my sophomore year of college. Now, is that because I was smarter than everyone else? And I will say, no. Hey, there were people that were smarter than me. Probably no one else ever thought of doing that. The key is, don't be hung up by other people's limitations or your own. Forget about, the things. But actually, let me just give you a principle in the anticipatory organization, and that is, think big about your future and realize you just thought small. There's a bigger big. So I never do the big. I always do the bigger big. So first I plan out the big, and then I skip that, and I come up with what's even better than that. And then all of the problems that we think we have, those aren't real. Like, I don't have money. I don't have time. Actually, you don't need money, and you don't need a lot of time. You just think you do. Have you really questioned that? And instead of this sounding abstract to you, that's why I wrote the book, so I could teach others to do it. Because, like I said, I don't want to be the only one doing this. And by the way, if you go to theaobook.com, you can find out about that and many other tools that people listening to this could use.
Well, that's great, Daniel. Now let's move on into the dig round. You're doing so many things. You're busy. You're flying all over the world. And what keeps you motivated on a daily basis?
I believe that as the world is increasing in its pace of change, we also have increasing faster. And if we, and I'm talking about every human on the planet, doesn't start learning how to be anticipatory and predict problems and pre-solve them before you have them, if we continue to just react to problems and fix them after they happen, you and I are not going to be very happy campers on the planet Earth. Secondly, if we want a more humane future, a more connected future, a more human future, a more enlightened future, hope is not a strategy. I want us all actively shaping a better future. So I'm excited about that. And the other thing that gets me really excited is when I give speeches, when people read my books, they actually start getting amazing results. And that motivates me. I mean, if no one was getting results, I wouldn't be motivated. I've been doing this for quite a while, and I could have easily retired years ago, but I would be retiring from being me. I am excited about helping others because I know this all works. And that's why I continue to write books and give speeches.
Now, who do you look up to as a business leader?
I look up to all of those entrepreneurs that are stepping forward and looking at game-changing tools and technologies that are allowing us to do things today that were impossible just 2 years ago, and applying them to do something really great in the world, to solve a big problem. And by the way, there are many of them all around. I look up to the people that think big and then think bigger, like the Elon Musks and people like that just continue to move forward, even though others say they can't do it. So it could be an entrepreneur anywhere in the world. It could be someone who's 40 or 50 and just decides, you know what, I'm going to have the courage to go to that next level and to do the thing that I've always wanted to do. And I think the key is having the confidence. And let me just talk about confidence for a minute, because that's what it really comes down to. Hard trends give you certainty in an uncertain world. And personal strategy as well as business strategy based on uncertainty has high risk, and that keeps us from doing things. But business strategy and personal strategy based on certainty gives us the confidence to make a bold move, lets us manage the risk and see that actually there's much less risk when you can see it's going to happen anyway. So what I really am helping people to do by becoming anticipatory is to get the confidence that certainty provides to make bold moves. And you could be 23, you could be 43, you could be 63, 83, it doesn't matter. It's amazing what you can do today, and thanks to technology, have a global reach.
Yes, for sure. Now, Daniel, as an author of 7 books, I think you said, there's a lot of theory out there, not only in your books, but in other books. But if you had to choose one, either book smarts or street smarts, which one do you choose?
Well, I think the best books, and I try to follow this myself, give you the concept, but then include the street smarts. And I think that's why my books have been bestsellers on every list in the past, and even the new book, Anticipatory Org, that the organization that's just now coming out, has already been #1 in hot new books on Amazon in pre-sales. And I think the reason is I'm a storyteller. So what I do is I give you the book smart, which means the concept. But then I give you the examples of how to do it, whether you're an individual or a big company or a school district. That's the street smarts. So I think the best books give you both. And I would like to say I think I do that.
Now, in everything that you've done over the years, is there a moment that kind of stands out as being kind of one of the most fulfilling moments of this journey of yours?
Yeah, I would say probably back in the early 2000s, I was giving a speech to a cell phone company in Africa, and they wanted to expand in other countries. And I only had 45 minutes to give them a speech. And what I did was I told them that they had to stop thinking of themselves as a telecommunications company and think of themselves as an economic empowerment company, because there was no infrastructure in all of the countries of Africa. And they were, how could people buy a cell phone when they don't even have electricity? And they worsened the internet and all of that. And I helped them to see, using hard trends, that, remember, this was early 2000s, that smartphones were going to be coming, and they were going to be our bank, they were going to be our television, they were going to be our GPS, they were going to be our map, they were going to be everything. So once I helped them to see that was the future of the phone, obviously we now know I was correct because I was using hard trends. I said, what you should do is when you go into a country and into a village, first thing you do is give them electricity. And you can use solar if they have a lot of sun. You could use biodiesel and so on if they have a lot of plants, and so that they can get water out of the well as charge their phones. And then once they start getting phones, economic activity will start increasing. And when competitors come in, they won't have a chance because you help them get water out of the well. The short story is within 2 years, they were in 23 countries doing this. They're now a leader in Africa. Word got out, and cell phone companies started doing that in the Middle East and did the same thing. And then I was invited to do that to South America, and met with some of the prime ministers in South America, got them doing it. I would say from that one speech, it caused probably more people to lift up and do things that were impossible and helped communities more than anything else I ever did. So that was a great 45 minutes.
That's amazing, Daniel. And I mean, that's just, I mean, it sounds like that, that speech really helped change people's lives, not only, to help the company, but it helped people who benefited from everything that they've done, and then coming back to your speech. Well, Daniel, unfortunately,
Tim, yes. I know, Tim, I'll just say that, I don't want our entrepreneurs out there to try to be successful because that's inwardly focused. I would like you instead to be significant. And significant is different than others and making the world better. Focus on that. Think bigger. And again, if you go to theaobook.com, you can get a lot more info.
That's excellent. Daniel, thank you very much for your time. And where on social media, again, can people follow you?
Daniel Burrus. So you could find me on Facebook. You could find me on Twitter and all the other platforms. And, of course, on LinkedIn, you can find me there as well. And I write every week. I write articles.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to watching you on this journey of yours.
Thank you, Tim.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskus.com.